I want the money.
You ain't getting a damn thing.
Tuesdays.
Please, Hannah, don't make me show you how evil I can be.
All right, have and have not fans. Now, this is most likely the most anticipated video since Tuesday night's episode. There hasn't been an hour since Tuesday where I'm not getting some message on Twitter, Instagram, or in the comment section of YouTube videos. Jeremy, when are you going to talk about it? Candace putting the hit on her mother. Let me just say this much. Last week, well, it's 12:30 on Sunday morning when I'm recording this, so the week before last, basically in the episode Team of Rivals, after that episode, it was like a divided fan base about, was David wrong for hitting Veronica? You know, did she get what she deserved, and yada, yada, yada. Now it's like everybody can't, my gosh. There are people, I'm not kidding, there are people who I have seen on social media for seasons. They've let me know, whether it be in my Facebook group or on Instagram or YouTube comments, like, Jeremy, I've been Team Candace, Team Candy Cane, Team Bad Bitch for ever since episode 1. No matter what Candace has done, I've made excuses, I've looked past whatever she's done. But her putting a hit on her mother is disgusting. Tyler Perry needs to hire new writers. I don't know what Tyler Perry's doing with the show. One week it's domestic violence. This week it's a daughter calling a hit on her own mother. This is ridiculous. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and I use the word devil loosely because last week I was talking about Veronica. This week I'm talking about Candace herself. I'm not going to get behind this microphone and defend Candace Young, but I'm also, hear me out. Is this really the worst thing Candace has done when you really think about it? The reason I didn't do this video earlier this week is because I needed time to kind of, jot down my thoughts, write down some notes, because I could have done like like a gut reaction and just jumped on this video like I did last week when it came to talking about, was David wrong for hitting Veronica? That video I had to do ASAP because the internet was abuzz with the pimp slap heard around the world. But this kind of video is, I had to really sit back and reflect on pretty much everything Candace has done from episode 1 to the present. Not even really thinking about all the things she's done prior to episode 1, but we know of based off it being mentioned throughout the series. Now, I believe it was a couple seasons ago when Candace actually put out a warrant for the arrest of Hannah Young because she claims that, Hannah had taken her son or kidnapped him from the hospital. And she did. And I mean, it was pretty funny because Catherine was like, Hannah Young on the run. That was a pretty good scene. And you know what? I'm not going to say this is the worst thing Candace has done to her mother. I think it is really disgusting that she would go to the lengths of, okay, when she put out the warrant for Hannah's arrest, I wasn't that disgusted by Candace because they both have different views on how Quincy Jr. should be raised. Even though Hannah would give the love and support and whatnot that Quincy needs, she doesn't have the monetary, she's not in a financially stable situation in which she could have taken care of Quincy Jr. That was made apparent when, if I'm not mistaken, they were at a bus stop and Quincy Jr. passed out. Of course, he was suffering from, I believe it was lupus disease. I'll never forget how ridiculous it was that Hannah had to carry the boy and was just running down the streets of the hospital. And I'm thinking to myself, this could have been avoided if, she had taken up Catherine or somebody on those many offers for a vehicle, because I get it. You're a strong, independent, self-sufficient woman, Hannah, and you don't want to take handouts and stuff like that. But by doing that, you're also ignoring blessings. Like, you got a keen sense of, I'm not taking this because it doesn't feel right, because I know in my soul that this money was gained through ill-gotten ventures, and I'll end up losing the money or whatever I buy with it as quickly as I got it. That makes sense. But when you think about it, you can't really say I can take care of this child when you really don't even have a pot to piss in. Like, at that point, I believe she was staying in a rundown motel. I mean, there was a point where she said, hey, I could sell my jewelry and stuff like this. I believe she sold the jewelry way back in season 1, trying to get a lawyer to help out Benny when he was in jail. But basically, she only had a few $100s, if that. You know, she was paying to stay at the motel because, remember, Quincy destroyed the house. She refused to stay at Benny's house. Wait, did she refuse? Yeah, she did. And I think that was around the time it got foreclosed on, so, or right before. So yeah, Hannah has made some questionable decisions that come back to bite her. It's just like, well, Hannah, if you would have taken somebody up on that offer, maybe you would have been able to get Quincy to the hospital sooner instead of running down the street for like the first opening 5 minutes of an episode. But that's besides the point. I'm sorry about the little tangent, but there will be a Hannah Young video on the way as well. I'm really kind of trying to map out the characters, if you feel me on this. That way you can kind of understand what I'm coming from when I say the hit really isn't that bad. I mean, you think about even during the early episodes, whenever, I believe in episode 1, when Candace first met, you know, the Harringtons and the Criers at Jim's surprise birthday party when he turned 50. And Hannah, of course, was her first night on the job as a maid. And Hannah was, you know, serving drinks, and Candace was there, and they asked about the parents. And it's like, oh, my mother's dead. And, you know, Hannah was literally right there. And as the season progressed, she always said that her mom died or made up some story basically showing that she's ashamed of her mother. And as the series unfolded, we learned more and more about why that is. But you think about the humiliation that Candace has put her mother through. I'll never forget one of the most disgusting, believe it or not, I think one of the most shameful and disgusting moments was when Hannah took all the money she had, which again was only a couple $100s, and she came over to Candace's house begging for custody of Quincy Jr., saying that, hey, you know, I can definitely provide him with just the love and support he needs. But again, Candace really just scoffed. It's like, you know, that money won't even buy me coffee. I'm just like, and ironically enough, she was holding a cup of coffee. And this was when Candace thought she was on top of the world. She had the $7.4 million that she extorted from Jim, living across from Pearl. And, you know, she wasn't having time for this. And I felt that it was so shameful. But again, it would have been different if, you know, Candace would have been like, you know, yeah, you may be able to give him the emotional support, but at the same time, you don't have a house. And at that point, I don't even think she was working. I could be wrong about that, but I don't even think she was working for Catherine. I mean, maybe she got the job offer, but I think at that time she was just denying any offers that Catherine was giving her. So yeah, even though Candace was in the right for not giving custody of Quincy Jr., I just feel like it was disgusting for her to just treat her mother that way. Now, let's just break down. You know, I'm trying not to, you know, ramble around, but like I said, I really want to talk about the history of Candace and Hannah to try to deliberate whether or not this is the worst thing she has done. But I will say this much. We know for a fact that Candace wants to move the millions of dollars from the joint account from Benny and Hannah over to whatever account that she plans to create at the bank, but there are just so many holes in that plan because unbeknownst to, I think I touched upon this in my trailer breakdown for Moles, unbeknownst to Candace, thanks to David calming Jim's crazy ass down, him and Lloyd now know that Veronica set up a bank account called the Crier Company for Candace Young, who took all the millions of dollars, aka Wyatt's inheritance, then transferred that over to another account, Benny Young, which is interesting because I don't believe Lloyd over the phone said, oh, she transferred over to another account. Who, Lloyd? An account by Benny Young. So is Benny like the first name on the account? Like, is that, maybe it's because when Candace went over to the bank, she put down her brother's name as the, you know, account holder, and that's why Lloyd didn't say Benny and Hannah. I don't know. I'm just going to assume that's what happened. But I'm kind of surprised that the banker didn't inform Candace that it's a joint account. So is that banker not doing his job by informing Candace that there are two names on the account, not just one? Because, when I do like PayPal or something like that, I check for that stuff. Benny Young has an account, but there's also a Benny Young and a Hannah Young account. Those are the little things that kind of get me about the show. Like, I can understand it for the sake of plot, but it would be great if it was explained a little bit better. That's just a little nitpick on me, on my thought process on this show going from point A to point B in the story. But I don't think that plan will work due to the fact that with Lloyd being, well aware of, oh man, I better not do anything else for Candace Young, whether Candace calls in herself or if Veronica calls in, because Jim is going to be on my fat, sweaty ass if he knows that I did something else to screw him over with Candace Young. And yeah, I think over the past couple episodes, these characters who are for the most part conniving and scheming, and I wouldn't say super geniuses, but they are very cunning. They've been making dumb mistakes lately. I mean, like, if you think about it, to be fair, Lloyd wouldn't, well, the Crier Company, you would think, because remember, what was it? Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't the name of the account that Candace had back in season 3 when she extorted the $7.4 million? Was it called the Candy Company? I think it was the Candy Company, the Candy Cane Company. I think it was the Candy or Candy. Yeah, I think it was the Candy Company. Wouldn't you think that Lloyd maybe would have known that, oh, wow, okay, this chick that almost took $8 million from Jim, Candace Young, then comes into the bank to get a $2 million loan and cash out. But then you flip that when Jim told me to get her to sign these documents where she wouldn't notice the balloon. I believe it was a couple of days where if she didn't pay back every cent of that $2 million, the bank is going to foreclose on everything. Why is Veronica setting up an account and then having the money transferred from one account to another? Now, to be fair, well, actually, no, because I remember Veronica said the bank's going to send over a bunch of papers for Candace to sign and whatnot. So Lloyd, I'm going to assume, was the banker that worked on the, files for this bank account. If he didn't notice Candace Young, which should be a red flag, because remember, Candace got, I guess you could say alerted, or the bank was alerted when they found out that the signature for Benny Young was forged. So I don't know why the bank would have been able to process any documentation for a Candace Young with the same, I'm assuming, social security number, address, and all that stuff. So I don't really know how that works. This show, what's funny? Like, don't get me wrong, I still enjoy the show and whatnot and breaking it down, because obviously this is my job. I'm a full-time YouTuber. But even when I take notes, I guess you ever think about something, but when you say it out loud, it sounds ridiculous. That's exactly what's going on with this show. There are a lot of things that go on in the show that wouldn't happen in the real world. Like I said before, I worked in a call center at Liberty University for 3 years. I didn't work in the financial aid department. I was an academic advisor, getting students signed up for classes and all that good stuff from, get them from semester 1 all the way to graduation. I've talked with student accounts, financial aid representatives, to get information on files. And yeah, they have those red flags, if a student is found for fraud, where they borrow money from the government just to live off the refund, that kind of stuff. Or, oh, wow, this student has outstanding debt at like University of Phoenix and Harvard and all these other schools, because they're clearly just doing it for the refund. So we have red flags for fraud. I believe it was like the FR hold or something like that. So I would think at a bank, especially at the magnitude of, the fact that you have, I believe Jim and Catherine, like chairman or stockholders or something like that at the bank. And even Veronica has some pull herself due to the fact that Lloyd was able to create the account in no time at all. It just baffles me that a woman who was charged with fraudulent bank fraud, for a lack of a better term, to borrow $2 million in cash. Yes, we know that was a scheme by Jim, because remember, Lloyd denied the loan. It's like, we can't just give $2 million in cash. And then, Jim was the one that conspired with Lloyd in order to make it happen. I don't really think a bank would have moved. It was $2 million in cash. This inheritance that was moved from, the Crier Company to another account, again with Candace Young, that's almost well, actually over 4 times the amount she wanted to borrow. So the bank must be running. There are so many incompetent people in this. My God, I'm sorry, a brain freeze. I literally am baffled by the amount of stupidity by these characters in the show. Oh, wow. Sorry about that. I literally, again, it just goes back to, it's interesting when you talk about this show out loud and look deeper. If you look under the layers of these plot points, a lot of stuff happens that makes zero sense at all in terms of real world events. Like, again, the fact that Lloyd let this slip under the radar, again, it just baffles me that there wasn't some sort of alert or flag if Candace Young's name popped up anywhere on the screen. That way they would stop any activity unless they got confirmation by Candace Young. You know, there were no forged signatures. Like, it was a legit thing. I mean, Veronica was the one to set up the account. Maybe that's why Lloyd kind of, you know, let it fly under the radar. But Candace Young filled out all the paperwork and sent it to the bank. It is just, okay. You know what's funny? Like, I started this video with the intention of talking about Candace being wrong for putting a hit on her mother. But when you really think about it, there are just so many more crimes of stupidity from other characters on the show. But let's get down to it. What's the point of this? Candace calls RK in the next episode moles. That's why I'm trying to get this video done before Tuesday, obviously. And she's on the phone, obviously, because she can't convince Hannah to put her name on the necessary documents to sign off on the money transfer. And my problem with this is I'm guessing that Benny's going to be in jail for the next few episodes, because it seems like an ongoing trend of each season for Benny to be either in the hospital, in jail, or sleeping with somebody like 5 episodes out of a season. I don't know. So I'm guessing that maybe Candace's plan was to get Hannah to sign the papers, then she would go down to the jail and then get Benny to sign the papers, then go back to the bank in order to move the funds to an account she created. But I doubt that plan would work due to the fact that Lloyd is now able to see that, oh my God, Candace Young again. So even if theoretically Hannah is beaten down to a pulp and signs the documents in order to not be killed, then she goes to the Candace goes to the jail to get Benny to sign the paperwork, it's going to fail. I mean, because if you remember when she first got the inheritance money, there was a federal hold on the account, which again is something I've seen when I was an advisor, not from the gut. Well, yeah, it was federal hold on the account, but for different reasons. But even if there are 2 big obstacles for Candace to overcome, well, 3 when you think about it. Number 1, even if by some stretch of the imagination she's able to set up another account at the same bank, there is no way that she's able to get the money that quickly, because pretty sure Landon is going to put a hold on the account. And unlike the first time, I doubt he's going to lift it, because Charles means business when it comes to getting Candace Young, no matter how much Landon hates it. So even if by some stretch of the imagination Candace creates the account, even though it's coming from Benny and Hannah's account, I doubt that the money is going to easily flow from one account to the next without some hold being put on it by Landon. Number 2, going back to number 1, I doubt there's any way in hell that Candace can just walk into the bank or get Veronica to do the dirty work of making an account, because Lloyd is now aware of any activity by Veronica or Candace working together. He wouldn't even let the account fly. Like, even if Veronica threatened him, which I'm pretty sure she would, I'm pretty sure Lloyd wouldn't budge due to the fact that he knows Jim doesn't play around as well. So I doubt that an account can even be created. And then number 3, the fact that, you know, Jim Cryer and Catherine now know that Candace took the money and then put it in an account by Benny. So even if, you know, she doesn't think anybody's after her, which Candace should be fully aware there are, she probably won't get the money. I'm pretty sure, because remember, Hannah's like, you know, I'm gonna call the feds. The feds are probably looking for the money right now. I want to turn it over to them. I'm pretty sure that the money is going to be given back to who it belongs to in no time at all. So Candace has more obstacles they're like landmines. It's like Candace needs to run across this field in order to get the money, but I doubt it's going to happen. I just have a feeling it's not going to happen due to the fact that the episode synopsis for Moles is Candace is back to her old schemes in order to make some quick cash in order to get out of town. I feel like that's an indication that it's not going to happen. Even if she calls RK, I don't know for sure if it's going to work out the way she wants to, because of the scene where it looks like Candace pushes Oscar out of the window. We don't know for sure if that's what goes down, but if you just look at the fact that Oscar has his back turned and it looks like he's clearly looking out of the window, based off the lighting of that scene, one would assume that either he's going to fall out of the window or Candace kills him. You never know. And then the fact that it says skip town in the synopsis, that lets me further know that Candace is definitely going to be on the run, as in, hey, I got to get out of town as quickly as I can due to such and such a thing happening. I feel like it is possible that Candace kills Oscar in Moles, and as a result of that, she skips town in no time flat. Think about it. Gia is an informant working for the feds, so it could be possible that Gia is made aware of Candace's murder, and because of that, she turns her over to Fred by telling Fred, hey, Candace, imagine Oscar falling out of the window. I'm pretty sure there are a couple stories up. It is not going to go unnoticed, or Oscar is killed in Candace's room. And let's say Gia is called in by Candace to come clean this up or something like that, like she did with Rocky's blood. I'm pretty sure that Gia is going to let the guy know, Fred, hey, she killed a guy. She needs to be arrested right away. Hotel staff will come in. People will go nuts. I think that Candace does something in this next episode that caused her to go on the run. And I do think it has to do with Oscar. That's my theory with that. And I really feel that, her scheme in order to get Hannah to sign the paper, I don't know if that's really going to happen. I feel like the whole calling RK is going to be the opening scene of the episode. Benny gets arrested. Hannah and Candace are on the stoop as Benny's driven away by the police. Candace tries to tell her one more time, hey, I'm going to ask you one more time, unless you want me to show you how evil I can be. And then she gets on the gets in the car, calls RK, asks for the hired help. And it's like, I need to get some hired muscle to persuade someone and possibly kick their ass, beat their ass. Who? My mother? We'll just have to see if that's really the thing that's going to happen. So when it boils down to it, I think that the interesting factor of how this episode is going to turn out is, well, not this episode, but let's just say this season as a whole, because we only got like 3 more episodes before this season comes to a close. The fact that Candace calls for the hit on her mother in Moles, but will we actually see this come to fruition before the end of the season? I mean, keep in mind that I could be wrong here, but I feel like we spent at least 6 to 9 episodes on a single day. Like this last episode, Team Arrivals, we finally moved on to the morning of the next day. I believe we were stuck in the same episode from the time that Vinny woke up Wyatt to go to the ATM, and that was the next morning. And then we spent all the next few episodes during that evening, that night, literally at night, like the middle of the night. And then finally we moved on to the next morning. And I don't think it's going to happen. Like, I doubt that Candace is going to be able to get RK to find some guys within the next few episodes to, strong arm Hannah. That's why I put out the video earlier about will Derek save Hannah from Candace's schemes, meaning that will Derek be around whenever this hired muscle comes to, strong arm Hannah to sign those documents? Is it a situation where Candace is going to show up, give Hannah one more time, one more chance to sign the documents, and then she's like, hell no. Next thing you know, these guys walk through the front door or something like that and then begin to threaten Hannah. I mean, first of all, I do want to see that scene happen just because I want to know what Hannah's going to say to Candace. It's like, you reached a little girl, reached a new low or something like that. I just feel like Hannah is going to lay down some of her strongest dialogue in that situation if that's the case. And then Derek, I do feel like Derek is going to be accounted for when this scene happens. And I'm not going to go into full detail because check out that video if you want to get my thoughts on Derek and how he might be involved in this. You know, like if the people that RK rounds up are people that Derek knew from back in his day of doing, you know, bad things on the street, who knows. But I'm just saying that Candace calling a hit, and again, I use the term hit lightly because it's not so much that Candace wants Hannah dead, because, well, if she's dead, there's no way she's going to get the signature. So it's pretty much, but Candace, in her mind, it's a by any means necessary kind of thing where she needs this money. And there is a video I'll do soon about, Candace being this bad bitch, or I'll probably have to work on the title so YouTube doesn't flag it. But when you really think about Candace Young and everything she's done since season 1, what has she truly accomplished? I mean, she has done a lot, but she doesn't have a lot to show for it when you really think about it. Now, I'm really talking about the fact that despite the schemes, the millions of dollars, it goes back to what Hannah always says: you lose that money as quickly as you got it. If you got, whatever it is, money, house, car, job, if you got it through ill-gotten gains, you're going to lose it just as quickly, if not more. You might sometimes lose more than you took, and that's something that Candace has learned. Well, I wouldn't say learn, I say she's experienced time and time again. It's like each time she goes to another scheme, she loses more and more and more, whether it be her house, her apartment, her own son, and the list just moves forward. I mean, even though I would hate for her to be first lady, because I really don't know what kind of message that Tyler Perry will be writing there. If it's like, hey, you can be this trifling whore doing all these things, stabbing people in the back, letting people die willingly, aka Quincy, and you can make it the first lady. I really don't know what kind of method there is to that madness, but I just feel like Candace Young calling a hit on her mom is definitely a new low, but I can't say that's her most wicked thing she's done on the show. I don't know. I'm going to be honest here. For people who say they've been Team Candace all series and now they're waiting until just now to jump off ship with Candace, I have to ask you, why is that? Because as I said before, this to me isn't the worst thing. I'm going to be honest here. I feel like one of the worst things she's done to Hannah, and I say this loosely when I say that it's the worst thing, but it's also stupid, feeling that Hannah allowed her son to die just to spite her. Literally. Think about that. Candace believes that her own mother let her own grandson die just to get under Candace's skin. You can chalk that up to grief, and then Candace somehow warping it in her twisted mind of everything is somebody else's fault. Kind of like Veronica, how everybody's out to get her. Everybody's teaming up. She's paranoid and whatnot. The same thing is with Candace. Candace never stops to look at what I've done wrong. She did a couple of times when, she was on, the warpath for Warlock. And she even talked about Erica. My mom said it plenty of times, if I keep doing this stuff, it's eventually going to come back on me. And you would think that in that moment she would actually reflect and change her ways, but nope, she just kept on lying and whatnot. And I just feel like Candace definitely hasn't grown at all as a character. And it's just a shame when you have the major players like Jim and Candace, but maybe they aren't there for character development. Maybe they're just there for the sake of moving the plot along, seeing what kind of schemes they're going to come up with next. But it is shameful because I want to see character growth, not at the end of the series where either Candace just get killed off or she instantly finds Christ and all this stuff and the cliche Tyler Perry movie or play. I don't want to see that unless we see some real growth before the series ends, potentially in 2020. We don't know yet, but I just wanted to do this video to get my thoughts out there to say that even though I feel like this is definitely not a positive route for Candace to go in terms of a character, because obviously ever since Quincy Jr. has died, her bitch level has skyrocketed to an all-time high. But as Landon said, it is pretty stupid. I mean, literally everything she's doing, from robbing, pimping, and now getting to the point where she's willing to call a hit on her mother. It makes no sense. It literally doesn't. I feel like this is probably one of the most forced plot lines in the show, just so we can have a, oh gosh, what's going to happen in this finale? Is the finale going to be like this hired help busting through Hannah's door or something like that? I just feel like it's really forced and stupid. And if you looked at my episode review of Smitten, I feel like I used the term stupid a lot to describe a lot of characters in the show. It literally makes no sense to me. I feel like this is, again, real. Candace putting a hit on her mother feels as forced as Benny instantly thinking, hey, Mitch, call up your family. I want to borrow the money for the tow truck from them. I feel like it was really forced. There's no entryway into it. It's just something that happened. That's really all I have to say. I thought when I first wrote my notes and got behind this mic to record, it would be a straightforward video talking about how much I hate Candace and blah, blah, blah. But to be honest, I don't feel like I'm as enraged as a lot of the fan base is about this. I'm not saying that Candace is in the right for doing what she's doing. I am not trying to say that at all. But as you can tell earlier in this video, when I talked about Lloyd at the bank and whatnot, the more I thought about it and verbally, talked about it, it just seems ridiculous. It isn't so much of a daughter should not do this to her own mother. It just seems like, is Tyler Perry really doing this? Because it seems really forced. And then while I was breaking it down, I just talked about how all the different ways that this makes zero sense, especially even if Hannah does sign the paperwork, it probably wouldn't work out in Candace's favor due to the fact that Lloyd and the bank wouldn't make another account under her name. Landon would probably put another hold on the account and wouldn't lift it this time. So yeah, to be honest, Candace putting a hit on her mother, if I were to sum it up in one word, I wouldn't say it's evil, it's conniving, it's disgusting, it's just disturbing. I think that it's stupid. I feel like this is one of the dumbest things that have been written into this season. And trust and believe, my gosh, Benny is the poster boy. You know how Bobby Brown is the poster boy of don't do drugs? If you look at his career from like the Don't Be Cruel album to where he is in life now, well, not count. I mean, New Edition's doing good, but just the fact that his life fell apart, that's just the haves and have-nots when you think about it. This season in a nutshell, Benny Young is the poster boy of stupid decisions. So yeah, guys, I have to admit this video is actually beneficial. Like, I thought by doing this, I would just hate Candace even more, but really I don't hate Candace even more. I just feel like this season, in terms of certain plot points, have just been poorly executed. So those are my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Again, this video did not go the way I originally planned, but yeah, I feel like this is definitely something to get the conversation going. Do you think it's stupid? I mean, I feel like stupid is a juvenile word, but to be honest, when you really think about it, there are just so many reasons that calling a hit on your own mother to get her to sign bank documents for a plan that's destined to fail just seems stupid.